Let's play Massive Darkness XP Modified Combat. This is a variation of Massive Darkness to make the game less fiddly so that you're not constantly changing weapons and checking stats and things, so that it goes more quickly too. The main difference is you won't be using the skill sheets and you don't transmute weapons. Instead, you'll be using your experience points to affect combat. In this video, I'll be showing a true solo variant called Rescue the Prisoner, but you can modify it with other adventures as well. So for Rescue the Prisoner, I have taken some of the regular treasures and I've placed the word prisoner on one, trap on another, and I've drawn kind of this no symbol on top of two of the treasures. So you may want to go ahead and create those if you want. These would be null treasures, as if no treasure is found. The trap causes 2 damage, and rescuing the prisoner is the goal of the mission. In addition, I have 2 special treasures and 3 regular treasures, giving us a total of 9 treasures altogether. This particular adventure is designed to last about an hour, so we have 3 tiles: the 5V tile, the 6V tile, and the 7R tile. We will place 3 treasures on each of the tiles, and to make things a little bit more fun, we won't have the prisoner or the trap show up in the first tile. We want them to show up in the second or third part of the game, so we'll move those out. And we'll also move one of the null treasures. So for the rest of them, we'll turn them over and mix them up and randomly put 3 of them on the first tile. There are 2 rooms, so we will place doors on the rooms wherever we would like. That now leaves us with 6 remaining treasures, so flip over the 3 other treasures, mix them up, and distribute them in the 2 remaining tiles, 3 treasures each. Then place doors to each of the rooms wherever you'd like. In Massive Darkness, if your hero is in line of sight, the enemy can attack them even if they're in shadow mode. So it may be a good idea to place your door in rooms that have light so that the hero can hide if they would like. Now decide the levels of your adventure. In this video, we'll have it start at level 2 for tile 1, and level 3 for tile 2, and level 4 for tile 3. Choose your hero and then assign equipment equal to 2 hands worth. That would be either a single 2-handed weapon, or 2 one-handed weapons, or a one-handed weapon and armor. You should choose weapons from 1 level less than the starting level. So if we're starting on level 2, then we use treasures of level 1. Now is a good time to talk about how we actually assign weapons to the hero based upon a treasure. So a regular treasure is worth a one-handed weapon. So the hero can decide what kind of weapon they're looking for. So it's as if they're walking through the dungeon and they're looking for a particular weapon. And so the treasure represents finding that weapon. So in this case, we may say that the hero is looking for armor. So we take the deck of cards, we can shuffle it up, and then continue flipping over cards until we find what they're looking for. So here he's found an armor, so that matches and we stop looking and assign that into the armor location. The regular treasure is considered a single-handed weapon, but that can also be potions. It's really anything that is not designated as a 2-handed item. The special treasure allows the hero to gain a 2-handed weapon at the current level, a one-handed weapon or item at the next level, or 2 items, regular items, at the current level. So our hero is going to look for armor and a single one-handed weapon for melee. So we will simply turn over cards until we find a one-handed melee weapon. This is a 2-handed weapon. This is gold. This is a one-handed magic weapon. And now we find a one-handed melee weapon and we'll place it in a weapon slot. Now add the marker for your health and determine whether you want to use a Lifebringer or not. In this video, we aren't going to be using the Lifebringer, but you can if you desire. In this variant of Massive Darkness, we will use XP to actually modify combat. So we will start with 10 XP points in this particular video. You can make it more difficult by starting with a lower XP, or you can make it easier by starting with a higher XP. Place the start and exit tokens as appropriate. In this video, we're placing the start token at the far right, lower right, and the exit token at the far upper left. The orders in the game round are the same, but the phases have been tweaked a little bit. The experience phase doesn't exist because the experience points are used to modify combat. In normal Massive Darkness, the event phase happens every single round. That gives it kind of an overwhelming feeling, which is appropriate for the name Massive Darkness. But if you would like to have a little bit easier type of play, then you can only draw the event cards when there are no enemies out on the board. The player phase and enemy phase have been modified to make things flow more easily. Enemies still target the way it's explained in the rules, but there is no explicit counterattack phase. Heroes and enemies all have the same behavior, and they all take one turn each round. Each turn consists of 2 actions with a maximum of 1 attack per opponent. In this particular scenario, the hero can attack both enemies because he has 2 actions and he can attack each opponent 1 time. The enemies, on the other hand, can attack the hero, but they cannot attack the hero twice. So in this case, the agent could attack once and the ogre could attack once. In addition to attack, movement is also an action. A movement has 2 movement points, so you can move 2 spaces, you could move a space and open a door, or you can pick up things. During this variant, you can have as many weapons as you want. There is no limit, and you can reorganize them as you want without any cost. There is no transmuting of weapons, and you can't trade in weapons for anything like experience points or other weapons. To simplify range differences in combat, once per activation, you can have 1 movement point as part of your attack. So in this particular case, the goblin archers can be attacked by the hero. He would move 2 points as his first, or 2 spaces as his first action, and in his second action, which is an attack, he could move and actually do a melee attack. There also is no feeling of being trapped. You don't have to remain in the same zone. So the archers, after being attacked by the hero, can, for their action, move 1 space out and then attack using a range attack if they desire. Goblin archers can use both the melee and range attack, but the monsters will always move to their best advantage. So if they're able to attack more effectively from a range attack, they will move out of position and then attack. Let's now show overflow and counterattack. At level 2, the goblin archers each take 1 point of damage. Let's assume in this particular case that the hero does 2 points of damage to the goblin archers. The first archer, minion, would be killed immediately, and the hero would gain 1 experience point. Then the damage would overflow to the boss, and because he has enough damage to kill the boss is now laid down on its side. This indicates that the boss will have an opportunity to counterattack. When it's the goblin archer's turn to attack, they get to use the attack like normal and would do whatever damage is appropriate based upon the die roll. Then, when the attack is over, since this boss was killed, he is removed from the game, and the card is placed in the location where the boss was when they died. In fact, in the case of the goblin archers, they may have been more effective by moving out. So even though we laid that archer down, he would have, in the battle, moved away and attacked from 1 space away. So the card should be placed wherever that enemy would have moved. Then finally, we would increase the experience points, 3, for the boss that was killed. So let's consider an example battle between this hero and the goblin archers at level 2. In this particular case, the hero has 1 yellow die, and the goblin archers have 1 blue defense die. And we roll, and we see that we get 1 sword and 1 shield. In normal Massive Darkness, the hero would not have done any damage to the enemies. However, in the XP modified variant, we can use XP to increase our attack ability. So we suggest that you use 2 experience points for each sword that you want to increase your attack by. You can change that value if you want to increase or decrease the difficulty. So in this particular case, the hero wants to defeat both goblin archers. They both have 1 health point, and so you want to do 2 points worth of damage. That would be equal to 4 experience points. So by reducing my experience by 4, I have increased my attack by 2, allowing me to defeat both of the archers. In this particular case, the first archer would be defeated and removed from the game, and immediately we would give him 1 increase in experience points. But the second archer would just be laid down because he needs to have an opportunity to counterattack. In this particular case, the counterattack of the goblin archers is much more powerful if they're using ranged weapons. So this archer would move out of range of the hero and attack using a ranged weapon. That would be 3 yellow dice and 1 red die, and they also are modified by the enhancements on the card. So let's assume that this is the die roll. We have a ranged BAM is worth 2 swords, so we have at least 1 BAM here. I'll bring in 2 red die with a single sword so that we don't forget that increased attack value. And we have another BAM that takes away the defender die, which is really not helpful at all. So this means that we have 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 points worth of damage. And in normal Massive Darkness, that would easily kill the hero. However, in this variant, the XP modified variant, we use the experience points to help lessen the damage. So let's assume that we had 10 experience points in this particular case. Now here, we assume that you have to take 1 point of damage before you can use the XP to modify. To make things easier, you can reduce that requirement. Then you can expend 2 experience points to mitigate 1 sword. So here we take 1 point of damage and remove a sword. Then we reduce our XP by 2 and remove another sword. 2 again, and we remove another sword. 2 again, remove another sword. And then 2 again. 1, 2, 1, 2. We go down to 0 experience and we removed 2 more swords, but that still leaves 2 more swords. So we have to take 2 more points worth of damage. That's a lot of damage, but we remained alive. So that's the basics of how the XP modified variant of Massive Darkness works. The only other thing to show is how we deal with doors, since we already have treasures placed in the different rooms. The way this will work is the hero will complete his action before we flip over the door card. So in this particular case, his first action is to do a movement. And so he will use the first movement point to open the door and the second movement point to enter the room. What we do in this variant is use the card to determine how many enemies will be in the room, but we ignore the second area. So in this case, we will be adding 1 guard to the room. In this case, there are no guards in the room. In this particular case, there are 2 guards in the room. If the card does not say ambush, then the guards are placed in the room, but not in the same zone as the hero. However, if the card says ambush, then at least 1 enemy is placed in the same zone as the hero. So that explains how to play XP modified variant of Massive Darkness. The only other thing to say is how to play the scenario Rescue the Prisoner. So we have 3 tiles that are laid out, and the whole job of the hero is to find the prisoner and to escape. So we go through the rooms looking for the prisoner. When we find the prisoner, then immediately we will spawn a roaming monster equivalent to the last level. In this case, it happens to be 4, so we will spawn a greater roaming monster with a level 4 weapon. No matter what, since the prisoner has been found, the prisoner escapes, but then the hero must defend the prisoner from that roaming monster, and so while the hero is engaged in battle with that roaming monster, the prisoner escapes. But in order to win the scenario, you must defeat the final roaming monster and then proceed to the exit. The only other thing to show is the things that can be modified in order to change the game experience a little bit and make it more difficult or easier. So in this particular case, we started with a starting XP of 10, and the starting level of the hero is 1 less than the first tile level. In this particular case, the first tile was level 2, so our hero started at level 1. We didn't use any life bringers. XP per sword or per shield, we used 2 XP for each sword and shield. We did require damage, so if the enemy attacks a hero, the hero must have take 1 point of damage before you can modify with XP. The XP win, what that means here is how many XP points does the hero get when it defeats an enemy. We are following the Massive Darkness rules here, but you could change that to either just get 1 XP per character, or however you would like to do. You can purchase health with XP in this particular variant, and here we're saying that you have to expend 2 XP in order to get 1 health point. The event, we are using drawing an event card only when there are no enemies in play. You could draw events just like you do in normal Massive Darkness. Also, we have a rule that you can only attack an opponent once, but what happens if you have roaming monsters? Can you attack them more than once? In this particular variant, we're saying that you can only attack them once. So feel free to change those values in order to change your gameplay or your difficulty level. So I hope that's been helpful, and enjoy playing Massive Darkness.